I'm your host, Rob Carbone. This is BD4.
Barrett, some shake and bake, hits a three. Chance alive, this is the crowd. Barrett. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye. Anthony for three. That one goes down. Gotta put 4 fingers up when Torres comes to the plate. The ball.
All right, so 187 of the podcast tonight. I'm your host, Rob Carbone, and this is BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is a free podcast hosting platform where you can start your own podcast from your phone or your computer for free. And not only that, they can pay you for reading an ad just like I'm doing. So go and download the Anchor app, or go log on to their website at anchor.fm and get started and join the podcast world. Fucking been in a quiet last couple of fucking nights for the Knicks, but I think, maybe something is on the horizon here. What's that old saying? It's always quiet before the storm. It's been fucking quiet, and I'm hoping fucking something happens soon, because the training camps start up on December 1st. That's only a couple days from now. Preseason not too long after that. I'd say about 10 days after that, on the 11th, and then we get started at the end of December. So it's all creeping up on us. We'll be here before we know it. But yeah, usually when it's quiet like this, something starts brewing. And I'm hoping, all these random little signings and trades and deals that the Knicks have made so far this offseason, I'm hoping that's to set us up for something big, including Julius Randle, right? Hopefully you can attach some of these young assets and some of these picks that we continue to stockpile on. Hopefully you can attach a few of them to Randle in a deal, because that's the big thing that we wanted this offseason. But so tonight we're going to go over the offseason, kind of review some things and give my overall evaluation on it. And I think at the end here, won't be too long tonight, but at the end we're going to give a little letter grade on how I think the Knicks have done so far this offseason. It's obviously not over yet. There are some little moves that can happen. And obviously, again, like I said, maybe there's something bigger on the horizon. But so far, we're going to give them an offseason evaluation grade with the many things they have done so far this offseason. So that's going to be for tonight in 187. So if you haven't listened to 186 yet, go do that. That's a good episode as well. Episode 186, I had my buddy Leo from Say No More podcast on the show, and we discussed a whole lot. NFL, NBA, UFC, boxing, which by the way, did anybody see that? On Saturday night, it was Tyson Jones. Much anticipated. I spent the whole summer, as soon as I heard about that, thinking about it. It is Sunday night as I speak. As you are listening, it should be Monday morning. But Saturday night, it was the Tyson Jones fight. We've got the prelims first, Then we get to the co. And in the co-main event, it was former Knick, Nate Robinson, versus, I guess, some YouTuber, Jake Paul. Some popular YouTuber, Jake Paul. I guess it was just, this whole thing was a money grab to begin with, and I hate that shit. But I don't take serious like non-professionals just getting an easy path into professional boxing because they have big names and they'll draw revenue. I hate that shit. But here it was Nate Robinson, and he looked absolutely lost out there. Kind of felt bad for him at times with how ridiculous he looked. Jake Paul, who people think he's pretty decent as a boxer. That was his second box boxing match, but it was weird. But Robinson lasted, what was it, 2 rounds or 3 maybe, before he got KO'd. I mean, he was knocked out cold. Ball hit him with a hook and fucking he went down. But then we got to the Tyson Jones fight, and I don't know what people were expecting from this. I know Tyson and Jones were, 2 guys in their prime, better than everybody else. I get that, but they both are in their mid 50s, I believe, and so they're not Jesus, they're not God. They are who they are. They're human beings, and as great as they were in their prime, once people get to age 50, as great as you could, as great as you were in the past, you're going to have some kind of regression. And they obviously weren't the same. It obviously wasn't lights out like you would have envisioned a Tyson Jones fight back in the day, like they used to have. But it was fucking, it was Tyson and Jones at age 50. That's exactly what it was. That's what we got. So I wasn't extremely disappointed with the fight. I thought there were some good moments. I thought there were some very sloppy moments. Tyson showed us that he still has that quickness, and there weren't any ridiculous lands or anything like that, any knockout type punches. It was a no knockout fight. The ring was smaller. There were only 8 rounds, 2 minutes each, so there were a lot of rule, changes and stuff like that, little tweaks to the rule books. But fucking it was an exhibition, and in the end, despite what it looked like as Tyson being the clear fucking winner, it ended up being a draw. And I think that right there, at least in my opinion, it seemed like it was a scripted, result from the start. It seemed like that was going to be what they called if it was close enough to where it wouldn't have drew a big outrage. I feel like they planned on calling that shit a draw. That's why they had a no knockout rule, and it was just fucking odd. Definitely didn't seem like it was a draw, and they called it a draw. So an odd night, I think, to say the least. If you could summarize that whole night in one, different. It wasn't great. It wasn't absolutely terrible, which is funny because I said on Facebook, kind of contradicted what I'm saying here, but I said heading into that fight, I said this could either go really, really good or really, really bad. Cliche alert. But it ended up being kind of in the middle, despite what I said. I kind of didn't really have a true, legitimate, love or hate opinion on the whole thing. I thought it was just but that happened. So anywho, we're going to head to our first break on the show, and I guess when we get back, we will dive right into things, kind of just go over the offseason that the Knicks have had so far. And, it's probably over if they don't make this one more move. But, man, am I hoping they make this move and trade Randall here sometime between now and the start of the regular season. So we're going to get into all this stuff in a second. But first, let's head to our first break.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder that if you haven't followed me on social media yet or subscribed to the blog or this podcast, just go to my website to do all that stuff at nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com/connect.
All right, so fucking software is being so ridiculously slow, so I apologize for these long pauses of silence. But yeah, as for the Knick offseason, it's been a very weird offseason so far. See, this shit's right in the middle of the screen. I don't get it. Man, if I could throw this shitty ass tablet out the window, I could. If I could, I fucking would. But I don't know if it's that or if it's just a fucking editing software that I use, but it's horseshit. It's so slow. Anywho, yeah, it's been a very different off season. Not exactly great, but not the worst in the world. It wasn't last year's off season, right? But it's not an off season that you look back at and be like, wow, what an amazing job by Rose, Perry, and company. So we're going to get to the final grade at the end, but I want to start, going into the off season. What were the 5? I think if you can fucking put it into bullet points, right? And summarize it down to 5 needs. What were the 5 needs for the Knicks heading into the off season? I think in whatever order you like, in whatever order you want, doesn't have to be, in order, but 5 things you really wanted the Knicks to do this offseason. I think find a point guard, right? That was one thing we wanted looking into this offseason. Acquire some shooting to space out the floors a little bit more. Find your future head coach, for years to come. Find just straight up talent. Get talent on this team. And then acquire assets and picks. Okay, so I think those, and you could toss in trade Julius Randle as 6, but I think those are the 5 things that most Knicks fans were looking at heading into the offseason. All right, so find a point guard, acquire shooting, find a head coach, find talent, and acquire some assets and picks. How have we done with all these 5 things? Well, let's go over it. So we start with the draft, right? The Knicks have the number 8. They get that in the lottery. And then they have at the time, they had the 27 from LAC. But they do a bunch of trading, and they end up with 8 and eventually 25. They select Obi Toppin. They select Emmanuel Quickley. They eventually acquire 3 second-round picks after all that was said and done. And then they signed Miles Powell as an undraftee after the draft. Okay, so Obi Toppin, Quickley, 3 picks, Miles Powell. So as for Toppin, it wasn't your point guard that everybody was looking at. It wasn't Tyrese Halliburton. It wasn't Kyra Lewis Jr. It wasn't LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards. Nobody at the point guard position. It was a power forward, but it was a talented power forward. One of the more talented players in the draft, and perhaps the most talented players, perhaps the most talented players the Knicks could have taken at number 8. He can score. He can possibly shoot the ball. He's athletic. He's energetic. He brings some excitement to the Garden again. I don't know why Stephen A. Smith is on the screen here, but he is. And so that was Obi Toppin, right? A solid pick, right? You like that pick. Not a point guard, but talented, can score the ball, hopefully shoot the ball, energy, bring some excitement, and an upgrade from Randle, right? You get Quickley, pretty much straightforward. He's a guard, a point guard who can shoot the ball very effectively. Good. You like that. You get the 3 picks from the Ed Davis deal, continue to stockpile. That's always smart. And you sign Powell, who many people think could be a steal. Some scoring off the bench, provide instant offense and be that bucket getter, a 6th man of the year type. Maybe. If he is the steal. So that was the draft, right? A solid draft for the Knicks. Not the best, but a solid one. Free agency comes along, you lose a bunch of guys, you get a bunch of guys back. And you sign some new guys, right? You lose Dotson and Trier, which really hurt me. Dotson has been a very effective 3-and-D wing for the Knicks since being drafted here. Alonzo Trier came on as an undraftee and showed the Knicks in his rookie season, at least, that he was a very good scorer and another guy who has 6-man potential. The Knicks let him go. So that was very disappointing. The Knicks aren't a talented team, and 2 guys who have some talent, right, you just let walk willy-nilly. You let them go freely without even a fight. Dotson provided some shooting off the bounce and off the catch. He's pretty quick, sneaky quick to get to the rim, and a very strong wing defender, a very competitive defender. With Trier, again, a microwave scorer, instant buckets, good mid-range shooter, gets to the free throw line, plays aggressively, a chip on his shoulder, a New York mentality. Sure, he lacked defense, but you know what? So does the rest of the roster. And they weren't putting up buckets like Alonzo was. But the Knicks let Dotson and Trier go. That sucked. Really thought they should have at least brought back one of them. They didn't. Both of them are gone now. And they also said goodbye to guys like Ellington. Thank God. Good riddance. Gibson. Thank God. Good riddance, because I really thought he was going to stick around, being that Tom Thibodeau was here. Is here. Mo Harkless went and signed with, I think, LAC. Theo Pinson, but he is now back on a two-way deal. Bobby Portis signed somewhere, I think Dallas. And Kenny Wooten ends up getting waived and signs with the Houston Rockets. So those were the guys the Knicks lost. Okay. Couple of them hurt. Some of them you wanted to see go. Others, whatever. Clear some cap space and open up some roster spots. And you open up those roster spots for guys like this. So guys you gained, you get Alec Burks, you get Nerlens Noel, you get fucking Austin Rivers, you get you bring back Elfrid Payton, you work a new deal with Payton, less expensive. You get Spellman, Evans, who probably will be waived before the regular season. And you get Michael Kidd-Gilchrist more recently to an Exhibit 10. So with the Burks deal, right, it's a very cheap deal. 1 year, $6 million. Guy can score, he can shoot, he can slash, and maybe he'll be their starting shooting guard. You know, it's a decent deal. Somebody who averaged 15 points per game last season, it's a decent deal. Given $6 million to a guy who, you know, put up what would have been the second leading points average for the Knicks last season. Okay, so fucking, you'll take that Alec Burks deal at fucking $6 million. You will. Now we get to Nerlens Noel, 1 year, $5 million. Another very, you know, cheap deal, a decent deal. You know, a solid, okay, decent deal. Can't hate or love it. Noel is a guy who is very athletic. He plays defense. He brings some youth, and he's a really good backup to, hopefully, backup to Mitchell Robinson and not a starter. That's a perfect backup five right there. I think that was a really strong signing. Okay. Austin Rivers, you get 3 years, paying him $10 million over 3 years, but only one of those years is a guarantee. So a 2-year option. Okay, and it's a decent deal for somebody who can, again, score the ball, shoot the ball, and, you know, kind of bring some six-man scoring. Another decent deal. So Burks, Noel, Rivers, decent, right? Then you go to Elfrid Payton. When the Knicks originally waived him, very happy, right? Good riddance. But then a couple days later, we hear they're going to work out a new deal. He's coming back 1 year, $5 million. Yeah, it's cheap, but I don't like the deal, and I think anybody with a brain shouldn't love it either. He can't shoot the ball. He can't score the ball to begin with. He's got incredible tunnel vision with like, which, you know, fucking I call Randall vision. Ignoring RJ all the time, you know, not improving our youth, right? Just out there to pad his stats and make the Knicks maybe, you know, 2 or 3 more wins. You know, give the Knicks 2 or 3 more wins fucking than it would be with anybody else out there. So pretty meaningless. And you know, no better than the younger options out there. If you're giving us 2 or 3 more wins, I'd rather go with the younger options, you know, a rotation of Frank, DSJ, you know, Quickly, Rivers, you know, fucking Peters, Harper, anybody, any one of those guys starting at point guard, which I guarantee Peyton will, but any one of those guys I would have rather had as opposed to signing Peyton and bringing him back, because he just counterproducts what we're doing here. He's guaranteed to start. I'm telling you, it's just a poor signing. We had other options out there. You know, guys that would have actually benefited the youth. You know, if we're not going to win no matter what next year, we're not winning games. So why not go with the guy that is part of our future, right? A guy that gets us somewhere and doesn't just neutralize this spot and only stall time. But Knicks, right? Hashtag Knicks. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, which was a signing they made the other night. another Kentucky guy, another CAA client. So I guess the Kentucky Knicks brought to you by CAA, right? Well, we got 6 guys from Kentucky, a bunch of other guys from CAA, some both. it's crazy. But Gilchrist was signed to a 1-year contract, being paid the minimum salary. It's an Exhibit 10 contract, which I had to go and look that up because, not going to lie to you guys, they're not going to bullshit. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up, and pretty much what an Exhibit 10 contract is you can convert an Exhibit 10 into a 2-way contract, as long as that occurs prior to the season. It's also a non-guaranteed contract, so it allows the team, if they don't want Kid Gilchrist, to waive him without any cap hit. Okay, so minimum cap hit, no cap hit at all. So it literally is a no-harm signing, but it's not like it's a rewarding signing. He sucks ass. He's a good defending forward. I'll give him that. Okay, I'll give Kid Gilchrist that. He can defend the 4 spot all the way down to the 2 spot. But, as for anything else, he doesn't do much. He's kind of like a Frank Ntilikina if Frank never reaches his ceiling. That's who Kid Gilchrist is. So that was the whole free agency thing, right? It wasn't just that we missed out on the big names. I get that, right? I get missing out on Bertans and Gallinari, although, the Knicks have the money to fucking do it. But, okay, I'll play along. Whatever. It was the fair cost guys that still would have been an upgrade. And we're going to go back to point guard here at the point guard position. Talking about Peyton again. Fucking DJ Augustine, Jeff Teague, Malik Beasley. Guys like that who would have been huge. Augustine signed for $21 million across the next 3 years with Milwaukee. Okay, that's $7 million per season. That's the AAV. That's not bad. The Knicks could have done that. He's a pick and roll point guard. The Knicks got 2 pick and roll guys in the front court. He gives you 12 and 5, which is a much better, it looks the same as Peyton's number, but it's more productive. It's an upgrade from him for sure because he can shoot the ball. He's just an upgrade from the current point guard rotation we have right now. Knows how to play. Been in the league a bit. Beasley signed for $60 million across 4 years. That's a $15 million AAV. Backup shooting guard, double figure scoring, shoots the ball well. Averaged 21 points in 14 games with Minnesota last season when he went over there. Jeff Teague signs a 1-year deal with Boston. Would have been another serviceable placeholder at the point guard position. Another upgrade from the current rotation we have. Peyton, etc. Double figure scorer, pick and roll guy, gives you 5+ assists, and again can shoot the basketball. So, a lot of guys out there, and it didn't have to be point guards. I just thought there were some good players that we missed out. JaMychal Green, could have been a backup power forward to Toppin. Rebounds the ball well. Signed for $15 million across 2 years. That's 7.5 AAV with Denver. Could have been a really good backup to Toppin. Now we have to rely on Knox to back him up when Toppin's not on the floor. And Lord knows how that's going to go. There were guys we missed on, man. It doesn't have to be Van Vliet. Although we have the money, let's be real. If we wanted to, we could have done that without any legitimate harm. But if I'm playing along, it didn't have to be a Van Vliet, Gallinari, Bertans, yada yada. It could have been someone like Augustine, who was definitely an upgrade from Peyton. It could have been something. So I do think there was a window there where the Knicks could have done something. There was a little more they could have done in terms of a free agent market. Okay? So you look at it overall. You look back at the top of that list from the, starting at what we said at the top of the show. It was fucking find a point guard, right? Acquire shooting, find a head coach, find talent, acquire assets and picks. Okay, so did we find our future point guard? Looking back, did we find our future point guard this offseason? So far. No, right? No, we did not find our future point guard. Not in the draft, not in free agency, and so far, not via trade. So that was a giant fail there. Okay, and I think that holds a lot of weight because the Knicks, as much as you can improve, you're not going to improve a ton without a point guard. You still need an engine at the lead guard position if you want to go anywhere in this league. So that holds a lot of weight. It's not just 1 out of 5 things they failed on. It's 1 out of 5 things that holds a lot of weight. It's a lot. So they failed to get their point guard, okay? I thought at worst they should have used in-house options, okay? If you didn't even want to pay an Augustine or a Teague, the small deals that they're on, you could have at least fucking stayed away from Elfrid Payton and went with the in-house options like normal fucking rebuilding teams do. But again, hashtag Knicks. So we did not find our point guard. Did we acquire shooting? Yes. We acquired shooting, right? We did lose Dotson. We did lose Trier, but they didn't get major minutes anyway. And we've got guys like Burks now who can shoot the 3 at an effective rate. Rivers, who can shoot the 3 at an effective rate. Quickly, who can shoot the 3. Powell, who I think can shoot the 3 at an effective rate. Excuse me. And so we have more shooting. Marginally improved. I wouldn't say it's tremendously improved, but it's marginally improved, the shooting. So I think the floor spacing will be a bit better. And again, Toppin, if he can, that's his swing skill right there. If you can translate that shooting from Dayton, and bring it to the NBA, that's another guy who can shoot. And especially if you move Randall, there you go. So I think the shooting will be improved to a degree. So yes, there you acquired shooting. Did you find your head coach? Yes. You found Tom Thibodeau. Is he the right fit? Well, that remains to be seen, right? You've got a win now guy coaching a win later team. That's my biggest concern here, but we'll see how it goes, right? So far, yes, you did find a head coach. You did find shooting. Did you find talent? Yeah, we found talent for sure. You've got Toppin, okay? That was your big ad this offseason. Acquire assets and picks. I think that's the best thing they've done. That is the one thing Leon Rose has done so wonderfully since coming here is acquiring assets, tradable guys and draft picks, right? So he's done a wonderful job there, stockpiling on draft capital and bringing in young guys who, have somewhat of a ceiling and could help contending teams in need of that extra score or whatever. We have that. We have that. Rivers, trade bait. We have Noel, trade bait. We have a lot of trade bait now, role players. So I think he's done a good job collecting assets and picks. So if you're looking at all that, okay, all that being said, and if you're to give this Knicks front office, Scott Perry, Leon Rose, and whoever the fuck, Tom Thibodeau, if you're to give them all a grade on what they've done this offseason so far, up to this date, up to November 29th, I think you've got to go somewhere in the C+, maybe B- range. Okay, so C+/B- is where I would have them right now. Okay, now if they were to do something where they make a move for a point guard after all, and it's not named Russell Westbrook, and it gets Peyton out of that spot, that would improve their grade. If they were to find a way to trade Julius Randle to give Obi Toppin more freedom to grow and RJ more room to work in the driving lanes, and the Knicks as a team less stagnant and much more spaced out on the floor, if they were found to find a way to fucking get rid of Randle and his contract and his inefficiency, that right there would skyrocket that C+. It would definitely get them into the B+ range. I'm not going to go into the A range because that's for, elite deals. But, I'll tell you what, a C+ at the moment, if they were to find a way to get Randall out of here, I don't even care if we got potato chips and, a bag of peanut M&Ms in return. It's already a big deal to get that C+ up. So that's pretty much that. I would give them a C+, maybe a B-, overall this offseason. I don't love it, don't hate it. I think it was okay. I think it'll make them more competitive. I think it was an offseason more about the future than it is right now. But people are getting impatient. We've got to start showing signs. And I know people like Cade Cunningham, but we can't keep talking about tanking every year. We've got to start showing some improvement, or the Knicks are going to continue to be this joke on a loop, on a loop, on a loop. We've got to start winning more, okay? It's got to come. And I've said this before on the podcast, but if the Knicks were to go from a 22-win team this past season to a 30-win team, and it's from the young guys, I would take not being in great lottery position if the young guys are getting us wins. But if we're not in great lottery position and it's the vets and the stopgaps and the temporary players getting us 30, 33 wins, whatever, that's where I have an issue, okay? But if the young guys are going out there and they're playing collectively as a unit and they seem to be playing a proper brand of basketball and they're winning more games, not enough to get into the playoffs, but enough to show that you've become more attractive, I don't mind not being in great lottery position, because I know that means the guys that are going to be here in the future are improving. So that's what I'm hoping for this upcoming season. Okay, that's what I want. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We're going to head to break one last time, and when we get back from break, we're going to do the NYK question of the day to wrap things up. Be right back.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder that if you haven't followed me on social media yet or subscribed to the blog or this podcast, just go to my website to do all that stuff at nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com/connect.
All right, so in episode 186, I asked you guys, how many seasons did Jeremy Lin serve as a New York Knick? Now, the answer to that question is pretty surprising. I don't remember it being one season, but it was. I thought he was here for like 2 or 3. But he was only there for that one Linsanity season, which Linsanity lasted about a couple of weeks, was all. But if you don't know this, Linsanity was kind of what got me into the Knicks again. That's what got me into the Knicks. And it's kind of pathetic to admit and embarrassing, but as a kid, I grew up a Nets fan. My father took me to the Nets games a lot. We got tickets to the Nets, the New Jersey Nets. Obviously, it was the New Jersey Nets at the time. I think they played at Izod, maybe. And, it was Jason Kidd, it was Richard Jefferson, Vince Carter, some guy named Kittles, Scalabrini was on the team. That was the team I watched. Loved it growing up. But for a while, I left the game of basketball, didn't really watch it anymore. But as soon as Linsanity fucking happened, I'll admit, I jumped on the bandwagon. I started watching the Knicks again. I was like, hey, this Jeremy Lin dude is pretty fucking cool. And then the hype died down for a bit, so I stopped watching. But I came back in 2012, 2013, and that was the year Carmelo Anthony just went off. That was his best season as a Knick. Brought the Knicks into the playoffs, 54 wins. He won the scoring title. The Knicks went all the way to, what was it, the third round or second round, and lost to Indiana. The fucking made Roy Hibbert look like Shaq. Tyson Chandler was just pathetic. Melo hurt his shoulder. Wasn't getting the whistles. I was pissed off. But yeah, Jeremy Lin is what really started it. That started it. Linsanity. So that's where that question came from. He was on my mind. So tonight, without wasting further time, for episode 187, the question I've got for you is Gerald Wilkins wore number 21 for the Knicks from 1986 to 1982. I'm sorry, from 1986 to 1992. Okay, so Gerald Wilkins wore number 21 from 86 to 92. 86 to 92. Who wore number 21 after Wilkins? Okay, so who wore number 21 for the Knicks after Wilkins' stint from 86 to 92? Message me the answer, or you can comment on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter once I publish the podcast. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to BD4. I am your host, Rob Carbone. You can find BD4 on many platforms. So many podcast feeds. Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, which is Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. You can watch us on YouTube. If you want to find all those feeds and the many platforms for the podcast, just go to my website. Go to nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Click on podcasts, and that'll take you to my page that displays all the podcast feeds. It'll take you to the latest episode and all that stuff. If you want to follow me on social media, be sure to do that too. You can find that info on my website, nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. But, I'll just tell you. You can find me on Facebook at RJ Carbone. That is r.j.carbone. You can find me on Instagram at Rob J. Carbone. At Rob J. Carbone. And you can find me at Twitter at NYSportsTalkRC. That is at NYSportsTalkRC. That's on Twitter. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I appreciate the support. Like us, follow us, subscribe to us, download the podcast, review it, rate it, tell me I suck, tell me I'm pathetic, I'm terrible, tell me I'm wonderful, tell me I'm great, whatever you want to do. I don't mind it. But I do enjoy you guys tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. And that's all we've got for episode 187. 187 of the podcast. Tell you what, we're coming up on 200. I'm excited. I'm really excited, guys, for this Knicks squad to get going. Not that I think they're going to do anything special. Again, they're going to suck. And who knows if they're even going to do the proper things to try and develop these young players. But I'm just excited to see this team again. I love watching my favorite team. Suck or no suck. I love watching the team I have stuck with for a while. Excuse me. So preseason begins in, about 2 weeks. Detroit for a couple games. Then we go back home and host, I believe, Cleveland for the next 2. But, hopefully at some point in the season, we can get some kind of crowd at MSG, because Madison Square Garden is not the same without thousands of New Yorkers just going buck wild, right? So guys, one last time, thank you for tuning in. This is Rob Carbone, your host, Rob Carbone of the podcast of BD4, sponsored by Anchor. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That's all we've got. Have a nice night. Have a nice day whenever you're listening to this. Thank you for listening, watching. God bless you. And I'll see you next time. Ciao. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor.